Oh yeah, striking 101. We are back on a Sunday after a fabulous weekend of boxing, and mixed martial arts. Shout out to the PFL for making their debut. Don't forget to swing for the fences and hit the dislike button. You know what? Everybody tells you hit the like button, hit the dislike button, because this is the opinion you love to hate. This is the opinion you love to hate right here. Go on and hit the dislike button as you come into the building, as you come into the room. You know. It's your boy. It's your boy. I'm chill in the building, right? Look. Saul Canelo Alvarez, Cinnamon, gets in the ring with Billy Joe. There's only one Billy Joe Saunders, as Tyson Fury would say. And they get it on this week and on Saturday, in fact. And in front of 73,000 people. So they broke the record that Ali and Leon Spinks held for a fight event. And that is absolutely insane. And that is good to hear. Jerry World, it's in Dallas, Texas, right in Cowboy Stadium. So, Jerry's loving every minute of it. And there's just a lot to be said about the effort to put this fight together. But anyway, let's get to some of the details. You seen the stream. If you didn't see the stream, go back to what we did a week before last week, right? And I want you to check out what I said concerning this fight because it played out just as I told you it would. Um we we talked about the Chris Eubank factor in Canelo, except for that Canelo punches harder than Chris Eubank. I don't think Billy Joe Saunders is going to make it. And so the fight opens up as such. Saunders is putting rounds in the bank. In fact, Sergio Moya calling the fight. You may remember him from the Contender series, and some of the guys just on the panel that night. They had Saunders winning, right? Saunders was on his way to an upset victory in that fight, and it's because he's outboxing Canelo. Canelo has always had problems with boxers. Um, we thought Billy Joe Saunders might be more of a boxer puncher. He's not. And I told you, I thought Chris Eubank beat him. I think he's beaten everyone else. I thought Chris Eubank won that fight against him. It, like I said, listen to it with the commentary off because they cheese up the whole fight. Chris Eubank is landing big shots. Oh, I think Billy Joe got the best of that combination and stuff like that. No, right? So Billy Joe runs into a tank of a man in Canelo. Saul Alvarez, Cinnamon Canelo, right? So Canelo, the number one pound for pound fighter in the world at the moment, is losing. He's down on the cards, and it's because Canelo's boxing prowess are good. He's not getting hit a lot, but he's also not throwing a whole lot of offense. Now, one thing about when Canelo's doing that, he does a few things. He touches your body. And as he touches your body, he commits to that because he knows you will slow down. And then he just peppers you a little bit. He doesn't hit you extremely hard yet. Sometimes he'll just kind of test your chin. If you can take it, he'll just kind of keep putting rounds in the bank. Keep touching that body. Let me touch your tummy. He gives you a tummy tuck, right? And so when he's giving you this tummy tuck, you start to feel that. And as you start to feel that, you start to slow down a little bit. And as you start to slow down a little bit, the fight begins to change because he starts to hit the body, then go upstairs a bit. And when he goes upstairs, he hits hard enough to damage and hurt you. It's not it's not punches you can just ignore. It's not pitter patter. It's splitter splatter, right? So that's what Canelo does, and that's exactly what he did to Billy Joel. And as I told you, he was susceptible to Chris Eubank's uppercut. Guess what? Round 8. And Canelo went uppercut crazy. And you seen Demetrius Andrade just use this same lead uppercut against Liam Williams. Canelo wasn't throwing the lead uppercut. He was throwing the normal anticipated uppercut. But he hits him so hard, he breaks his orbital socket, breaks his orbital bone. 3 places, confirmed by Eddie Hearn, as he was at the hospital with him the other night. And so in doing this, all of a sudden, Billy Joe doesn't come out the corner for the knife. And so the fight is stopped in the 8th round. 8th round stop is technical knockout. I believe I said that, right? 8th and 9th, maybe a 10th, right? I said 8th and 9th round. I told you how it was going to go down. It went down just like that. Just like that, right? And so Billy Joe Saunders is no longer in the bigger, thicker picture because his belt goes with Canelo Saul Alvarez, right? So now we go to the post-fight interview. And guess who shows up? Remember, we're in Houston. So Jamal Charlo could have did this. Jamal Charlo could have did this. I don't know if Hurd was in town. I believe he said he was training there for a little bit. If he could have did this. Errol Spence, who lives there, could have did this. None of them show up. You know who shows up? The big boss shows up. Demetrius Andrade. Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade said, come step in the doo-doo. Come get in the ring with Boo Boo. You dig? And Demetrius was up front. He was blunt. But he was courteous, right? He came in courteous. Just told him, congratulations. I'm a big fan. Him and Canelo just kind of bantering at first. And he says, yeah, so when can me and you, do something? Demetrius is always courteous, And this is what kills me. They take his kindness for weakness. He said, hey, when do you think me and you could possibly get in the fight? He talks to you like a real businessman. And you know what happens every time? It happened with Charlo. What, man? You won't? Is it a problem? You want to? That's how they act. Right? Until somebody puts a contract in their face, and then we can get no action out of them. We get no action at all from them if a contract surfaces with Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade's name on it. So Canelo does a similar thing. He's first Canelo is funnier with this, right? He says, you have who you fight? Nobody. I mean, you're a champion, but who you fight? And so Boo Boo answers, he says, well, if it's that easy, come beat me. Come, let's get busy. When can we get that going? You're a horrible fighter. Canelo says. Get the out of here. That's what Canelo says. Get the out of here. And so then Andre's dad is like, who's you talking to? You don't talk to grown men like that. Stuff could happen to you, right? And so then they start talking, and then Andre starts talking. Like, you shut me up. You get me out of here. You put me out. He's cussing a little bit, both of them. So Canelo kind of antagonizes him. And here's the thing. That's that belt at 160. And we know where Canelo would have to go back down to in order to get that. But Andre, if promised to fight, and the promise kept, would come up to 168 to bang with Canelo. And so now we have a dilemma. We have a dilemma here, right? Because of two things. Here's the two things. One, Andre will either come up and fight Canelo and get busy, or Canelo will come down to fight Andre. Here's what we're looking at. Canelo wants to fight Caleb Plant. Once he fights Caleb Plant, he'll probably move down, because to fight David Benavidez is a chore. David Benavidez is huge. David Benavidez hits hard. David Benavidez is Mexican. And the first thing out of Sal's mouth when David Benavidez was talking about fighting him was, I probably won't fight any Mexican fighters. And I understand that. I get it. I get it. He wants to draw the color line, especially with the hard-hitting David Benavidez. Everybody wants to draw some type of line in the sand instead of having to fight David Benavidez. I get it. I get the boy's a monster. You had Charlo call out David Benavidez till David Benavidez answered, and Charlo said, it's not my job. I don't have to fight him. He's heavier than me, right? It went from, he's a child. He's a baby. He can get beat up to, yeah, I don't have to fight him. And that's a smart move, because David Benavidez is a creature. And I don't think he can stay at that weight. I think he's a light heavyweight moving to heavyweight in disguise. Right? Or at least a cruiserweight or something. He's not super middleweight. He's cheating. He's too big for that weight. But it makes sense for him to call those names out when they say his name, or even if they don't, because you say you want to unify 168. He was the man until the belt was taken from him. And, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And as long as he doesn't have a belt, you don't have to fight him. But if he gets one, if somebody makes a mistake and fights him, he will have that belt. Because Benavidez is the damn truth. I'm going to tell you right now. But moving right along, right? Moving right along. Let's be clear. When it comes to what Canelo can do, Canelo will fight David or Caleb Plant. He's going to fight Caleb Plant next. After he fights Caleb Plant, if he can beat Caleb Plant, because remember, Caleb gave David Benavidez a little trouble in sparring. So the story goes. So the question will be, does Canelo want to fight Caleb Plant? Does he see something in Caleb he can exploit? If he does, he will get that belt, and he will avoid David Benavidez, and he will probably fight Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade right after. If the Caleb Plant cannot be made, and he feels Caleb is too big, he has to face he should face Boo Boo Andrade at 160, give up his plight to capture all the belts at 168, because those dudes are much bigger than him. He punches the same, but those dudes are huge. And he probably fought the least of the punchers in Billy Joe Saunders, and put it that way, right? Go to 160. You and Andre can get it on. Let's see who the boss is. I think Canelo's a beast. I think he's number one at the moment. I've had him number one for some years. I think he loses to Andrade. I think Andrade is the true number one and deserves the crown. And I'm disgusted at the other boxers. And I'm disgusted at boxing. And I'm disgusted at boxing panels. And I'm disgusted at Facebook warriors who claim anything besides that. Because Andrade has been their dad for a long time. When you beat people up in the amateurs so bad that when you get to the pros, they act like you don't exist. They say goofy stuff like, who has he fought? He obviously fought a champion because he got that belt. And he's beating up you in the amateurs, for you fighters who act like he's fought nobody. And he's beating up people you struggle with in the pros. Metrosian. Right? People don't even know. I had a discussion with a young cat. This is how I know cats don't know boxing. He tells me Liam Williams has never been in the top 10. Liam Williams was ranked 7th, ranked 10th. If he didn't know that Liam Williams and Liam Smith were fighting for the chance to fight Canelo, And Liam Williams was whooping Liam Smith in the first fight and happened to get cut, and they stopped the fight. Liam Williams would have fought Canelo instead. That would have been interesting because he's the harder puncher of the two. And he can throw bombs. Andre got him out of here. Remember, he's got 3 losses. He's got 2 losses to Liam Smith. Liam Williams does. First time to cut. Second time, I believe there was a family member who passed away or something of that nature. So he wasn't there. Wasn't Liam anymore. Shook all that off, got it back together, ran 8 consecutive knockouts, and lost to Boo Boo Andrade. Now, Boo Boo's beating up a lot of tough dudes. Willie Nelson, the African brother who nobody wanted to fight because he's damn near light heavyweight. And Boo Boo dropped him a few times. People who say Boo Boo's fights are boring, you're dumb. His fights are always exciting. He always knocks somebody down. Sometimes he gets knocked down early just because he's one of those fighters. He's like Felix Trinidad. You drop him, he gets up and he beats the brakes off of you. It is what it is. And so Canelo, who was losing the Billy Joe Saunders fight, pretty much damn near the whole fight at first, he looked unimpressive. The best thing was him closing it with the knockout because most of the fight, he was just being outboxed, as I told you would happen. That's just Canelo's style. It is what it is. And so he was outboxed by Billy Joe Saunders until he broke his face. It's always funny when something like that happens. I'm going to break your face. You know, you get that thought in your mind, and then somebody really breaks somebody's face. They crash your orbital bone, or they crash your cheekbone, right? Or they fracture a part of your forehead. Fight game is wild. But Canelo did that in order to win. If he doesn't do that, you know, and if he doesn't get a knockdown or something dramatic, we're looking at a different fight because Billy Joe was winning the boxing round. Now, here's the problem. Andrade is not only going to box better than Billy Joe Saunders, he hits a lot harder than Billy Joe Saunders. And Canelo will probably taste the canvas if he fights Demetrius Andrade. The question will be, can he get up to win the fight against Demetrius? I see multiple knockdowns. I see Canelo getting Boo Boo once. Boo Boo's power and speed and skill set, I definitely see him getting Canelo. I believe there's going to be 3 knockdowns. Who will have the final one will be the question. I think they put on a classic. I'm picking Andrade. Most of you would choose otherwise. And we have to see it like this because of 2 things. Number 1, Eddie Hearn can put that fight together. Matchroom is there, right? The Zone is there. Canelo's a free agent. You're working with Hearn, who is Andrade's promoter. Makes the most sense in the world. In order for Canelo to fight Jamal, even Jermell Charlo, and the other Charlo brothers calling Canelo the best anyway, saying he's the number 1 fighter. So he's tasting Canelo right now. He's feeling Canelo right now. No disrespect, because I like the Charlo brothers. I think they're dope. I think you're dope, Charlo brothers. But here's the deal. Andrade ain't feeling none of that. Andrade want the war. And he just disrespect. He's talking crazy with his daddy. He want the beef. He want the heat. So if the Caleb Plant fight doesn't happen in September, Charlo stay ready and plan strictly for Canelo. And if that don't happen for you, set something up for yourself in November and switch your training camp to fight somebody similar to Canelo. Make sure you have a second option in case he says no. If Canelo says yes, set it off. Let's see who the boss is at one. Let's see who the boss is at 160, right? Because Caleb Plant is people aren't thinking much of Caleb Plant. I'm gonna tell you right now, Caleb Plant is a tall order for Canelo because of the size differential. It's not gonna be like the other guys you've seen Canelo fight at 168. Caleb Plant is a problem a little bit, right? Right. That's why him and David Benavidez are they're talking. They're two dogs barking between a gate. Ain't nobody bit yet, because they didn't had episodes and sparring and stuff. But Caleb Plant is tough, and if you won't fight David Benavidez, Canelo, I don't know if you want to fight Caleb Plant either. I don't know if you see what you think you see. I'm gonna tell you, be very careful fighting David, fighting Caleb Plant. And then the last thing, like I said, Demetrius Andrade at 160 is there for you. All you got to do is drop a little bit of weight. Or tell him to move up to 168 and fight you for those belts so he can take those belts. And we can see somebody, if he beats you, fight Caleb Plant and then fight David Benavidez and fight the other opposition at 168. You're not going to fight because you're too little for the damn weight class in the first place. You just happen to be great. And when you're great, you can do things of that nature. But Boo Boo Andrade is also great. And no one wants to give him the opportunity to be that in the pros due to what he was in the amateurs. Goddamn great. And with that said, I'm going to close out the broadcast for this week. Man, like I said, hit the subscribe button so you know when we come on. Supreme Strike and your brother Bump. Swing for the fences.